In the vast tapestry of animated storytelling, few tales have captured hearts and minds like Avatar: The Last Airbender. This masterpiece emerged from the creative vision of Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, weaving together ancient wisdom, martial arts philosophy, and timeless themes of growth and redemption. Tonight, we journey through the hidden depths of this beloved world, exploring the secrets behind its creation, the careful craftsmanship of its characters, and the profound cultural influences that shaped every frame. Let these whispered truths guide you into peaceful slumber as we uncover the extraordinary legacy of The Last Airbender. The story of Avatar: The Last Airbender begins with a single decision that would forever change the landscape of animated television. Michael DiMartino, working as a writer on the irreverent comedy Family Guy, made the bold choice to leave his position and pursue something entirely different. This departure marked the beginning of one of the most beloved animated series in television history, though few could have predicted the extraordinary journey that lay ahead. In those early days of development, DiMartino joined forces with Brian Konietzko, an artist whose vision perfectly complemented his storytelling ambitions. Together, they embarked on creating something unprecedented in Western animation, a series that would blend Eastern philosophy with contemporary storytelling techniques. Their collaboration began with countless hours of research, diving deep into Asian cultures, martial arts, traditions, and spiritual practices that would form the foundation of their fictional world. The original concept for Avatar differed dramatically from what audiences would eventually see on screen. In those initial brainstorming sessions, DiMartino and Konietzko envisioned a story set thousands of years in the future, where advanced technology and mystical powers coexisted in ways that challenged conventional storytelling. This futuristic setting promised to explore themes of progress versus tradition, though the creators soon realized that this approach might distance viewers from the more intimate, personal stories they hoped to tell. The decision to shift the setting from a distant future to a mystical past proved transformative. This change allowed the creators to explore timeless themes without the complications of advanced technology overshadowing the human elements of their story. The new setting also provided greater freedom to incorporate the rich cultural traditions they had been studying, creating a world where ancient wisdom could take center stage alongside spectacular bending abilities. Central to their world-building process was the careful selection of Chinese characters that would appear in the opening sequence of each episode. These 4 characters, displayed prominently during the show's introduction, carried profound meaning that many Western viewers might overlook. When translated into English, these characters convey the concept of a divine medium who has descended upon the mortal world, essentially providing a rough but accurate translation of what an avatar represents in both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. The production process itself became a testament to the creators' commitment to quality storytelling. Each episode required approximately 9 months from the initial script writing phase to final air-ready completion, a timeline that allowed for extraordinary attention to detail, but also demanded careful planning and coordination. This extended production schedule meant that writers, animators, and voice actors had to maintain consistency across long periods, ensuring that character development and visual storytelling remained coherent throughout the series. The physical creation of Avatar took place at Nickelodeon Animation Studio in Burbank, California, where the creative team found themselves sharing workspace with another iconic animated series. The Avatar staff occupied the same floor as the SpongeBob SquarePants crew, with both teams sharing a single bathroom between them. This unusual arrangement created an environment where creators of vastly different animated worlds crossed paths daily. Though their storytelling approaches could hardly have been more different, the influence of anime aesthetics on Avatar cannot be overstated. Though the creators were careful to develop their own unique visual language rather than simply copying existing styles, they drew inspiration from legendary anime directors and studios. Studying the work of Studio Ghibli, Studio 4C, and Production IG. The fluid animation techniques pioneered by these Japanese studios provided a foundation for Avatar's distinctive movement and cinematography, though DiMartino and Konietzko adapted these influences to serve their own narrative purposes. Perhaps most significantly, the Avatar creative team received direct instruction to study the work of Shinichiro Watanabe, the acclaimed director behind Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Director Giancarlo Volpe later revealed that the entire staff was ordered to purchase and watch every single episode of FLCL, analyzing its innovative animation techniques and unconventional storytelling methods. This mandatory viewing session proved instrumental in shaping Avatar's willingness to experiment with visual storytelling and emotional expression through animation. The initial character designs underwent numerous revisions as the creators refined their vision for each member of the cast. Early concept art reveals characters who, while recognizable, differed significantly from their final forms. These early designs helped establish the basic personalities and relationships that would drive the series, though the creators continued refining visual details throughout the production process to ensure that each character's appearance perfectly supported their role in the larger narrative. The creation of the Avatar world required unprecedented research into real-world cultures, with the creators traveling extensively to gather authentic details that would inform their fictional nations. This commitment to cultural authenticity extended beyond simple visual references, encompassing everything from architectural styles to philosophical traditions. The creators understood that their fictional world would only feel genuine if it drew from real cultural foundations, though they were careful to create something new rather than simply copying existing traditions. Brian Konietzko's journey to Iceland proved particularly influential in shaping the Fire Nation's distinctive appearance. The volcanic landscapes, dramatic coastlines, and unique geological formations of Iceland provided perfect inspiration for the Fire Nation's imposing architecture and harsh beauty. These real-world locations helped establish the Fire Nation as a place of both terrible power and haunting beauty, reflecting the complex nature of its inhabitants. The network negotiations surrounding Avatar revealed the challenges of creating sophisticated animated content for younger audiences. Nickelodeon's executives initially struggled to understand the series' unique blend of action, philosophy, and character development, though they ultimately recognized the potential for something truly special. These early discussions established the creative freedom that would allow DiMartino and Konietzko to tackle mature themes while maintaining the accessibility that made Avatar appealing to viewers of all ages. The decision to ground Avatar's fantastical elements in real-world martial arts traditions proved crucial to the series' authenticity. Rather than creating arbitrary magical systems, the creators spent countless hours studying Chinese martial arts, understanding not just the physical movements, but the philosophical principles underlying each discipline. This research ensured that each nation's bending style would feel authentic and internally consistent, supporting the larger themes of balance and harmony that permeate the entire series. As production began in earnest, the creators established a collaborative environment that encouraged input from animators, voice actors, and other creative professionals. This open approach to storytelling allowed unexpected elements to emerge organically, such as the popularity of background characters who would eventually become fan favorites. The creative team's willingness to embrace these happy accidents contributed to the rich, lived-in feeling that makes the Avatar world feel genuinely inhabited rather than simply constructed for narrative convenience. The integration of Eastern and Western storytelling traditions required careful balance, ensuring that the series would resonate with American audiences while respecting the cultural sources that inspired its creation. This delicate approach to cultural fusion became a hallmark of Avatar's success, demonstrating that animated series could serve as bridges between different traditions rather than simply appropriating surface elements for exotic appeal. The foundation of Avatar: The Last Airbender rests upon one of the most extensive research projects ever undertaken for an animated television series. Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko understood that their fictional bending arts would only feel authentic if they drew from genuine martial arts traditions, leading them to embark on a comprehensive study of Chinese fighting styles that would ultimately define the very soul of their created world. The creators' commitment to authenticity led them to consult with Sifu Kisu, a martial arts expert whose knowledge would prove instrumental in developing each nation's distinctive bending style. This collaboration ensured that every movement seen on screen carried the weight of centuries-old tradition, transforming what could have been arbitrary magical gestures into meaningful expressions of philosophy and culture. The careful attention to martial arts authenticity elevated Avatar beyond typical fantasy fare, grounding its supernatural elements in recognizable human movement and breathing techniques. Airbending emerged from the graceful, circular movements of Ba Gua Zhang, an internal Chinese martial art known for its emphasis on constant motion and flowing transitions. This ancient practice, sometimes called 8 trigram palm, focuses on walking in circles while executing techniques that emphasize evasion and redirection rather than direct confrontation. The philosophy underlying Bagua Zhang perfectly matched the air nomad's peaceful nature, as practitioners learn to overcome opposition through superior positioning and mental clarity rather than brute force. The circular stepping patterns characteristic of Bagua Zhang became the visual foundation for airbending sequences throughout the series. When Aang performs his most spectacular aerial maneuvers, careful observers can identify the precise footwork and hand positions that mirror authentic Bagua techniques. The creators ensured that even the most fantastical airbending displays maintained connection to real martial arts principles, creating a sense of internal logic that makes the impossible feel believable. The spiritual aspects of Bagua Zhang also influenced the air nomad's philosophy and lifestyle. This martial art emphasizes mental flexibility, adaptability, and the ability to find opportunity within seemingly impossible situations. These principles became central to Aang's character development, as his journey required him to maintain his peaceful nature while facing increasingly violent opposition. The connection between martial art and philosophy created depth that extended far beyond simple fight choreography. Waterbending found its roots in the gentle, flowing movements of Tai Chi, perhaps the most widely recognized internal martial art in the world. Tai Chi's emphasis on slow, continuous movement and the cultivation of internal energy aligned perfectly with the water tribe's connection to the natural rhythms of ocean tides and lunar cycles. The creators studied how Tai Chi practitioners channel their internal energy through smooth, unbroken sequences that emphasize balance and harmony over aggressive force. The push and pull dynamics central to Tai Chi became fundamental to waterbending's visual language. Every waterbending sequence reflects the martial art's emphasis on yielding to incoming force, while simultaneously redirecting that energy back toward an opponent. This principle of overcoming strength through flexibility mirrors the water tribe's approach to survival in harsh climates where direct confrontation with natural forces leads to destruction, while adaptation ensures survival. Tai Chi's meditative qualities also influenced the spiritual aspects of waterbending, particularly the connection between benders and the moon spirit Tui. The martial arts' emphasis on breathing techniques and internal energy cultivation provided the foundation for advanced waterbending abilities like healing and the eventual development of bloodbending. The creators understood that water's life-giving properties required a martial art that emphasized harmony rather than destruction. Earthbending drew its power from Hung Gar Kung Fu, a southern Chinese martial art known for its powerful stances, strong linear movements, and emphasis on internal strength. Hung Gar practitioners develop incredible stability and power through training that focuses on rooting oneself firmly to the ground while delivering devastating strikes. This martial art's emphasis on solid foundation and unwavering determination perfectly captured the Earth Kingdom's stubborn resilience and practical approach to problem solving. The wide, stable stances characteristic of Hung Gar became the visual signature of earthbending throughout the series. Earthbenders plant their feet firmly and use their entire body to generate the force necessary to move massive stone structures. The martial arts' emphasis on training the stance above all else, mirrors the Earth Kingdom's cultural values of persistence, hard work, and gradual but steady progress toward long-term goals. Aang Gar's animal-inspired techniques, particularly the tiger and crane forms, influenced specific earthbending moves seen throughout the series. The tiger's powerful, direct attacks inspired the crushing stone techniques favored by Earth Kingdom soldiers, while the crane's balance and precision influenced more refined earthbending applications. This connection between animal movements and bending styles created another layer of authenticity that enriched the fictional world's internal consistency. However, the creators introduced a fascinating exception to earthbending's traditional foundation through Toph's unique fighting style. Having learned earthbending directly from badger moles rather than human teachers, Toph developed techniques based on southern praying mantis, kung fu, a martial art that emphasizes close-range combat, rapid strikes, and the ability to feel an opponent's intentions through physical contact. This alternative approach to earthbending reflected Toph's blindness and her need to develop alternative methods of perceiving her environment. Southern praying mantis. Kung Fu's emphasis on sensitivity and listening became central to Toph's seismic sense ability. The martial art teaches practitioners to read their opponent's intentions through subtle physical cues, a skill that translated perfectly to Toph's ability to sense vibrations through the earth. This connection between martial arts training and supernatural ability demonstrated the creator's sophisticated understanding of how physical practice could enhance spiritual perception. Firebending emerged from the aggressive, linear movements of Northern Shaolin Kung Fu, an external martial art known for its powerful kicks, quick hand techniques, and explosive generation of force. Northern Shaolin's emphasis on speed, aggression, and overwhelming opponents through superior technique aligned with the Fire Nation's militaristic culture and their approach to solving problems through direct action rather than patient negotiation. The forward-moving, attack-oriented nature of Northern Shaolin became the defining characteristic of firebending throughout the series. Firebenders rarely retreat or yield ground, instead preferring to meet opposition with increasingly powerful attacks. This martial art's emphasis on taking initiative and controlling the pace of combat reflected the Fire Nation's imperial ambitions and their belief that their superior technology and discipline justified their conquest of other nations. Northern Shaolin's breathing techniques, particularly those that generate internal heat, provided the foundation for firebending's connection to emotion and life force. The martial art teaches practitioners to cultivate and direct their internal energy through controlled breathing and mental focus, concepts that became central to advanced firebending techniques like lightning generation and redirection. The creators understood that fire's destructive power required a martial art that emphasized discipline and mental control. The original masters of each bending art added another layer of authenticity to the Avatar world's internal mythology. Sky Bison served as the first airbending teachers, their natural ability to fly inspiring the circular movements and spiritual detachment that characterized air nomad philosophy. The creators established that early airbenders learned by observing these gentle giants, developing techniques that emphasized harmony with natural forces rather than domination over them. The moon and ocean spirits, Tui and La, became the original waterbending masters through their eternal dance of push and pull. This cosmic relationship provided the philosophical foundation for waterbending's emphasis on balance, adaptation, and the interconnectedness of all living things. Waterbenders learned to align themselves with these natural rhythms, developing abilities that reflected the eternal cycle of tides and seasons. Dragons served as the first firebending teachers, their mastery of flame providing the original inspiration for human firebenders. However, the creators established that early Fire Nation culture misunderstood the dragon's teachings, focusing on fire's destructive power rather than its life-giving properties. This misinterpretation became central to the Fire Nation's spiritual decline and their eventual embrace of conquest over harmony. Badger Moles, the original earthbending masters, taught humans through direct demonstration of earthbending's fundamental principles. These blind creatures developed their abilities through necessity, using seismic sense to navigate underground tunnels and locate food sources. Early earthbenders learned by working alongside badger moles, developing the patient, methodical approach that became characteristic of Earth Kingdom culture. The Avatar state represented the culmination of all martial arts traditions, allowing the Avatar to access the accumulated knowledge and abilities of all previous incarnations. This concept drew from Taoist philosophy regarding the cultivation of internal energy and the possibility of transcending normal human limitations through spiritual practice. The Avatar state sequences combined elements from all four martial arts, creating choreography that reflected the harmony between opposing forces. The creator's attention to breathing techniques across all bending arts reflected their understanding of qi cultivation in traditional Chinese martial arts. Every bending sequence incorporated authentic breathing patterns that enhanced both the visual impact and philosophical authenticity of each technique. This attention to detail ensured that bending felt like a natural extension of human potential, rather than arbitrary magical powers. The spiritual elements underlying each martial art influenced the broader philosophy of their respective nations. Air nomads embraced detachment and spiritual growth, reflecting Ba Gua Zhang's emphasis on mental flexibility. Water tribes valued adaptation and community, mirroring Tai Chi's focus on harmony and balance. Earth Kingdom citizens emphasized stability and perseverance, embodying Hungar's emphasis on strong foundations. Fire Nation culture celebrated power and achievement, though they had lost touch with Northern Shaolin's underlying emphasis on discipline and honor. The bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds found expression through the martial arts foundation underlying each bending art. The creators understood that authentic spiritual practice requires physical discipline, and they ensured that every supernatural ability in Avatar maintained connection to recognizable human movement and breathing techniques. This grounding in real martial arts tradition elevated Avatar beyond typical fantasy entertainment, creating a work that honored both the physical and philosophical heritage of Chinese martial arts. The voice casting process for Avatar: The Last Airbender began with an unaired pilot that featured a significantly different vocal landscape from what audiences would eventually come to know and love. In this early version, Aang was voiced by Mitchell Musso, the young actor who would later become famous for his role as Oliver on Hannah Montana, and his voice work as Jeremy in Phineas and Ferb. While Musso brought enthusiasm to the role, the creators ultimately felt that his vocal qualities didn't capture the spiritual depth and ancient wisdom they envisioned for their 12-year-old Avatar. The search for Aang's definitive voice led the casting directors to Zach Tyler Eisen, a young actor whose previous work included roles in various television productions. Eisen's audition revealed a voice that perfectly balanced childlike wonder with the underlying gravitas necessary for a character who carried the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. His ability to convey both playful innocence and profound sadness in a single line proved essential for Aang's complex emotional journey throughout the series. Eisen's performance brought layers of authenticity to Aang's character that extended beyond simple line delivery. The young actor understood intuitively how to convey the burden of being the last of his people while maintaining the optimism and compassion that defined Aang's approach to life. His voice work captured the contradiction inherent in Aang's situation, a child forced to confront adult responsibilities while desperately clinging to his peaceful nature in an increasingly violent world. Mae Whitman's casting as Katara brought together years of voice acting experience with a natural ability to convey maternal warmth and fierce determination. Whitman had already established herself as a talented voice actor through various animated projects, but her work as Katara would become one of her most memorable performances. Her voice perfectly captured Katara's evolution from a young girl desperate to master waterbending into a confident young woman capable of challenging masters twice her age. The connection between Whitman and Dante Basco extended beyond their work on Avatar, creating an interesting parallel that few fans initially recognized. Whitman had previously played Rose in American Dragon Jake Long, where she served as the love interest for the titular character, voiced by none other than Dante Basco himself. Even in that earlier series, the two characters found themselves on opposing sides, foreshadowing the complex relationship their Avatar characters would eventually develop. Dante Basco's casting as Zuko proved to be one of the most inspired decisions in the entire production. Basco brought a unique combination of vulnerability and intensity to the role, capturing both Zuko's desperate need for approval and his underlying nobility. His previous work in Hook as Rufio had demonstrated his ability to portray characters caught between childhood and adulthood, a quality that proved essential for Zuko's redemption arc throughout the series. Basco's understanding of Zuko's internal conflict enriched every scene featuring the exiled prince. The actor conveyed the constant struggle between Zuko's desire to please his father and his growing recognition that the Fire Nation's actions were fundamentally wrong. This internal tension became the driving force behind one of television's most compelling redemption narratives, as Basco's performance allowed audiences to empathize with a character who spent much of the series as an antagonist. The family connection within the Basco household created an unexpected Easter egg for dedicated fans. When the Ember Island players performed their comedic version of the Avatar story, the actor portraying Zuko was voiced by Dante Basco's older brother Derek. This casting choice added a layer of meta humor to an already self-referential episode, while also demonstrating the production team's attention to meaningful details that enhanced the viewing experience. The tragic passing of Mako, Uncle Iroh's original voice actor, created one of the most challenging situations the production team would face. Mako had brought warmth, wisdom, and gentle humor to Iroh's character, establishing the kindly uncle as a fan favorite through his nuanced performance. His death before completing recordings for the final 7 episodes of Season 2 forced the creators to make difficult decisions about how to honor his memory while continuing the character's essential role in the story. Greg Baldwin's casting as Mako's replacement required extraordinary sensitivity and skill. Baldwin, who had served as Mako's understudy for years, understood both the technical aspects of voice acting and the emotional weight of continuing such a beloved character's journey. Rather than attempting to simply imitate Mako's performance, Baldwin developed his own interpretation of Iroh that honored the original while allowing the character to continue growing and evolving. The transition between voice actors was handled with remarkable grace by the production team. For the first half of Season 3, Iroh appeared only in silent scenes, allowing audiences to adjust to the change while maintaining the character's presence in the story. When Baldwin finally began delivering lines as Iroh, his performance felt like a natural continuation rather than a jarring replacement, testament to both his skill as an actor and the creator's thoughtful approach to a sensitive situation. Mark Hamill's surprise casting as Fire Lord Ozai represented one of the series' most unexpected and brilliant decisions. Hamill, best known for portraying Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars saga, brought his extensive voice acting experience to bear on Avatar's primary antagonist. His previous work as the Joker in Batman animated series had demonstrated his ability to convey menace and unpredictability, qualities that proved essential for bringing depth to what could have been a one-dimensional villain. The irony of Luke Skywalker voicing Zuko's father was not lost on fans familiar with both franchises. Hamill's performance as Ozai captured the absolute corruption of power and the toxic relationship between father and son that drove much of Zuko's character development. The actor's ability to convey both Ozai's overwhelming power and his fundamental emptiness as a person created a villain who was simultaneously terrifying and pitiable. Ray Delisle's remarkable range as a voice actor became evident through her work on multiple characters throughout the series. Her portrayal of Azula captured the character's intelligence, cruelty, and underlying instability with chilling effectiveness. Delisle understood that Azula's apparent perfection masked deep psychological damage, and her performance gradually revealed the cracks in the character's facade as the series progressed toward its conclusion. Delisle's work extended beyond Azula to include Tom, Mai's younger brother, demonstrating her ability to completely transform her vocal qualities to suit different characters. Her performance as the innocent toddler provided a stark contrast to her chilling work as Azula, showcasing the versatility that made her one of the animation industry's most sought-after voice actors. The careful selection of voice actors extended to supporting characters who appeared in only a few episodes, but required memorable performances to enhance the world's authenticity. Each casting decision reflected the creator's understanding that even minor characters contributed to the overall believability of their fictional world. This attention to detail in voice casting created a consistent quality that elevated every scene, regardless of which characters were speaking. The process of matching voice actors to their respective elements required careful consideration of how different vocal qualities might reflect the philosophical underpinnings of each nation. Airbenders needed voices that conveyed lightness and spirituality, while Earthbenders required vocal qualities that suggested stability and strength. Firebenders demanded voices capable of expressing both passion and aggression, while Waterbenders needed vocal flexibility that could convey both gentleness and power. The impact of voice acting on character development became particularly evident during emotional scenes where dialogue alone carried the weight of major plot developments. The voice actor's ability to convey complex emotions through their performances allowed the series to tackle mature themes while maintaining accessibility for younger viewers. This balance between sophistication and accessibility became one of Avatar's defining characteristics. The collaborative relationship between voice actors and the creative team extended beyond simple line delivery to include input on character development and motivation. Many voice actors contributed insights that influenced how their characters evolved throughout the series, creating a truly collaborative approach to character creation that enriched the final product. This open, creative environment allowed unexpected elements to emerge organically, contributing to the authentic feeling that made Avatar's characters feel like real people rather than animated constructs. The legacy of Avatar's voice acting extends far beyond the original series, as these performances established character interpretations that continue to influence subsequent adaptations and spin-off materials. The voices that brought these characters to life became inseparable from their animated forms, creating lasting impressions that defined how audiences understand and relate to the Avatar universe. The creation of Avatar: The Last Airbender required an unprecedented commitment to cultural research and authenticity that extended far beyond surface-level visual references. Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko understood that their fictional world would only achieve genuine depth if it drew from real cultural traditions with respect and understanding. This dedication to authenticity led them to embark on extensive studies of Asian cultures, philosophies, and historical practices that would ultimately inform every aspect of their created universe. The research process began with comprehensive exploration of Chinese history, philosophy, and cultural practices spanning thousands of years. The creators immersed themselves in studying the dynastic periods, examining how different eras of Chinese civilization had developed unique approaches to governance, military strategy, and social organization. This historical foundation provided the template for the Earth Kingdom's vast bureaucracy, complex social hierarchies, and the enduring stability that characterized their civilization throughout the series. Chinese calligraphy became one of the most visible expressions of this cultural authenticity, appearing throughout the series in ways that carried genuine meaning rather than serving as mere decorative elements. Every piece of writing visible on screen underwent careful translation and verification to ensure accuracy, from the grand proclamations displayed in the Earth King's palace to the intimate personal letters exchanged between characters during quiet moments. This attention to detail extended to the brushwork itself, with animators studying authentic calligraphy techniques to ensure that the writing appeared natural and consistent with traditional Chinese methods. The significance of character names throughout the series reflected the creators' deep dive into linguistic traditions across multiple Asian cultures. Each name was carefully selected, not only for its meaning, but also for its cultural appropriateness within the fictional nation where the character originated. This naming convention created layers of meaning that enriched character development while honoring the linguistic traditions that inspired their creation. Aang's name, when written in Chinese characters, translates to peaceful soaring, perfectly capturing both his airbending abilities and his philosophical approach to life. The creators chose this name specifically to reflect the air nomads' emphasis on spiritual detachment and their rejection of material concerns in favor of higher pursuits. The linguistic connection between Aang's name and his character development provided subtle reinforcement of his journey toward understanding his role as the Avatar. Fire Nation architecture drew inspiration from multiple real-world sources, with Brian Konietzko's research trip to Iceland providing particularly crucial visual references. The volcanic landscapes, dramatic coastlines, and imposing geological formations of Iceland offered perfect inspiration for the Fire Nation's combination of natural beauty and inherent danger. The creators understood that the Fire Nation needed to feel both magnificent and threatening, reflecting the dual nature of fire itself as both a life-giving and destructive force. The influence of real Icelandic locations extended beyond simple visual reference to inform the cultural character of the Fire Nation itself. Iceland's history of isolation, volcanic activity, and dramatic seasonal changes provided a framework for understanding how an island nation might develop the militaristic culture and technological advancement that characterized the Fire Nation. The harsh beauty of Iceland's landscape helped establish the Fire Nation as a place where strength and endurance were necessary for survival, qualities that had been corrupted into aggression and conquest. Earth Kingdom culture drew heavily from various periods of Chinese imperial history, particularly the bureaucratic systems and architectural styles that developed during the Tang and Song dynasties. The creators studied how these historical Chinese civilizations had managed vast territories through complex administrative systems, providing the foundation for Ba Sing Se's layered government structure and the Earth Kingdom's emphasis on stability and tradition over rapid change. The Great Wall of Ba Sing Se represented one of the most direct references to Chinese historical achievements, though the creators expanded the concept to reflect their fictional world's unique challenges. The wall's multiple layers and the city's ring-based social structure drew from historical Chinese urban planning, while addressing the specific needs of a world where earthbending made traditional fortifications both more possible and more necessary. Water tribe culture incorporated elements from multiple indigenous Arctic cultures, with particular attention to Inuit traditions and social structures. The creators researched how Arctic peoples had developed sustainable ways of life in harsh environments, studying everything from hunting techniques to spiritual practices that emphasized harmony with natural cycles. This research informed the water tribe's deep connection to the ocean and moon spirits, as well as their emphasis on community cooperation and adaptation to challenging circumstances. The water tribe's use of ice and snow as building materials reflected authentic Inuit architectural techniques, while their clothing designs incorporated traditional Arctic garments adapted for the fictional world's unique requirements. The creators ensured that every aspect of water tribe culture reflected practical solutions to Arctic living, while maintaining the spiritual depth that characterized their connection to the natural world. Air nomad traditions drew extensively from Tibetan Buddhist practices, particularly the monastic systems and philosophical teachings that emphasized detachment from worldly concerns. The creators studied how Tibetan monasteries had organized themselves as self-sufficient communities dedicated to spiritual development, providing the foundation for the air temple's social structure and the air nomads' approach to education and spiritual practice. The concept of the avatar itself reflected deep engagement with both Hindu and Buddhist concepts of divine incarnation and spiritual authority. The creators researched how these traditions understood the relationship between human and divine consciousness, developing their own interpretation that honored the source material while serving their story's unique requirements. The avatar state represented a synthesis of these philosophical concepts with the dramatic needs of their narrative. The integration of real historical events into fictional storylines required careful balance between authenticity and creative freedom. The creators drew inspiration from various historical conflicts and social movements, while ensuring that their fictional war maintained its own internal logic and emotional resonance. The 100-Year War reflected elements of multiple real-world conflicts, while addressing themes that remained relevant to contemporary audiences. The careful representation of different cultures extended to religious and spiritual practices portrayed throughout the series. The creators researched various Asian spiritual traditions to understand how different cultures approached concepts like meditation, ancestor veneration, and the relationship between physical and spiritual worlds. This research ensured that the spiritual elements in Avatar felt authentic rather than appropriated or superficial. The economic systems and trade relationships between the four nations reflected the creators' understanding of how geography and resources influenced historical civilizations. The Fire Nation's industrial advancement, the Earth Kingdom's agricultural abundance, the Water Tribe's subsistence lifestyle, and the Air Nomads' rejection of material accumulation all reflected how different environments and philosophies might shape economic development. The balance between representing cultures respectfully while creating something new required constant attention to avoid both appropriation and oversimplification. The creators worked to ensure that their fictional cultures felt like natural extensions of their real-world inspirations, rather than superficial copies or stereotypical representations. This approach created a world that honored its sources while telling its own unique story. The creation of a believable alternate world required establishing consistent rules for how different cultural elements interacted and influenced each other. The creators developed complex histories, explaining how the four nations had influenced each other through trade, conflict, and cultural exchange over thousands of years. These background histories informed character interactions and plot developments throughout the series. The attention to cultural authenticity extended to details as small as food preparation, clothing construction, and architectural techniques. Every visual element underwent research to ensure that it reflected authentic cultural practices while serving the story's dramatic requirements. This comprehensive approach to world building created a fictional universe that felt lived in and authentic, rather than artificially constructed for narrative convenience. The lasting impact of this cultural research continues to influence how audiences understand and appreciate the series. The creators' commitment to authenticity created a work that serves as a bridge between cultures, introducing Western audiences to Asian philosophical and cultural traditions, while telling a universally resonant story about growth, responsibility, and the power of choice. The animal kingdom of Avatar: The Last Airbender emerged from a creative decision that would fundamentally distinguish this fictional world from our own reality. Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko chose to populate their universe almost exclusively with hybrid creatures, blending familiar animals in unexpected combinations that created both wonder and internal consistency within their created world. This approach allowed them to maintain the fantastical nature of their setting, while grounding each creature in recognizable animal behaviors and characteristics. Appa's design journey began with a concept that differed dramatically from the beloved flying bison audiences came to know. In early development stages, the creators envisioned Aang's companion as a polar bear dog, a creature that would eventually find its place in The Legend of Korra as Korra's faithful companion, Naga. The transformation from polar bear dog to flying bison reflected the creator's evolving understanding of what Aang's relationship with his animal companion needed to represent within the larger narrative structure. The decision to make Appa a flying bison drew inspiration from multiple sources, though one influence proved particularly significant in shaping his final appearance. The creators found inspiration in the cat bus from Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro, particularly in how that fantastical creature combined impossible abilities with an undeniably lovable personality. This influence helped establish Appa as both a practical means of transportation and an emotional anchor for Aang's connection to his lost culture. Appa's massive scale presented both narrative opportunities and animation challenges that required careful consideration throughout the design process. The creators established that flying bison weigh approximately 10 tons, equivalent to 20,000 pounds, making them among the largest creatures in the Avatar world. This enormous size emphasized the incredible power required for flight, while also establishing Appa as a formidable presence capable of intimidating enemies when necessary. The impressive carrying capacity that resulted from Appa's size allowed the creators to solve numerous practical storytelling problems throughout the series. Appa could comfortably transport 10 to 15 people depending on their sizes, making him essential for group travel while also serving as a mobile base of operations during extended journeys. This practical aspect of his design ensured that Appa remained relevant to the plot rather than serving merely as an exotic pet or occasional transportation. Early concept art reveals that Appa originally possessed spiral horns similar to those found on certain species of antelope, though these distinctive features were ultimately removed due to animation complexity. The hand-drawn animation techniques used throughout Avatar required every design element to be reproducible across hundreds of frames, and the spiral horns proved too time-consuming and difficult to maintain consistently throughout action sequences and emotional scenes. The removal of Appa's spiral horns also reflected the creator's growing understanding of his role as a gentle giant rather than an aggressive creature. The horns, while visually striking, suggested a more confrontational nature that didn't align with the peaceful philosophy of the air nomads or Appa's function as a nurturing presence in Aang's life. The final design emphasized Appa's soft, approachable qualities while maintaining his impressive size and power. Appa's distinctive double chin, revealed in Avatar Extra's commentary, became an endearing characteristic that added to his appeal without serving any practical purpose within the story. This detail reflected the creator's attention to giving their creatures personality through subtle physical features that made them feel like real animals, rather than simply animated constructs designed to serve plot functions. Momo's creation story reveals even more dramatic changes from initial concept to final design. The creators originally envisioned Aang's animal companion as a Cyclops robot monkey who had survived the destruction of a lost civilization more than 1,000 years before the series began. This mechanical creature would have possessed arrows and a staff to match Aang's equipment, creating a visual parallel between master and companion that emphasized their shared connection to ancient knowledge. The concept name Momo 3 suggested that this mechanical companion would have been part of a series of similar creatures, implying a rich backstory involving advanced technology and the cyclical nature of civilizations rising and falling. While this concept offered intriguing possibilities for exploring themes of technological progress and cultural continuity, the creators ultimately decided that a more organic companion would better serve Aang's emotional needs and the series' overall themes. The transformation from mechanical monkey to winged lemur reflected the creator's evolving understanding of what Aang's journey required, rather than a connection to lost technology. Aang needed a living link to the natural world that the air nomads had cherished. Momo's final design as half bat and half lemur created a creature that embodied the air nomad's ability to find harmony between earth and sky, between the practical and the spiritual. Momo's name carried cultural significance that enriched his character beyond his role as comic relief. In Japanese, Momo means peach, a choice that proved prophetic when Momo stole a peach from Sokka shortly after joining the group. This linguistic connection demonstrated the creator's attention to meaningful details that enhanced the viewing experience for audiences familiar with multiple cultural references. The original concept for Momo as the reincarnation of monk Gyatso, revealed in Avatar extras, would have created a profound spiritual connection between Aang and his animal companion. This idea suggested that the souls of departed air nomads might find new life in the creatures that inhabited their abandoned temples, providing Aang with a direct link to his lost mentor and father figure. While this concept was ultimately abandoned, it reveals the depth of thought that went into every aspect of the Avatar world's spiritual mechanics. Ryan Konietzko's personal connection to Momo extended beyond professional character design to emotional investment based on childhood memories. The creator has stated that Momo became his favorite character to draw, with many of the creature's poses, mannerisms, and body language stemming from memories of his childhood cat, Buddy. This personal connection ensured that Momo's animation carried authentic animal behavior that made him feel like a real creature rather than a cartoon construct. The hybrid nature of nearly all animals in the Avatar world created opportunities for both humor and world building that enriched every scene featuring these creatures. The creators established a logical system where familiar animal traits combined in ways that made sense within their fictional ecosystem, while providing visual interest and occasional comic relief. This approach allowed them to maintain the fantastical nature of their world while grounding it in recognizable animal behaviors. The decision to make flying bison vegetarians, who particularly loved honey, reflected both practical storytelling needs and character development opportunities. Appa's gentle diet reinforced his peaceful nature while creating situations where his massive size contrasted humorously with his preference for delicate treats. This dietary choice also eliminated potential concerns about depicting a beloved character hunting or consuming other creatures that might disturb younger viewers. Dragon design throughout the series reflected the creator's understanding of these creatures as the original fire-bending masters, requiring them to embody both the destructive potential and life-giving properties of fire itself. The dragons Ran and Sha, whose names combine to form words meaning combustion and flame in Chinese, represented the dual nature of fire as both creator and destroyer. Their ancient wisdom and hidden survival demonstrated that the Fire Nation had lost touch with fire's true nature through their focus on conquest and destruction. Badger Molly intelligence and their role as the original earthbending teachers required the creators to develop creatures that could believably serve as instructors for human students. These blind creatures possessed seismic sense abilities that allowed them to navigate underground environments while teaching earthbenders to feel vibrations through the earth rather than relying solely on sight. The Badgermole's patient methodical approach to Earth manipulation influenced Earth Kingdom culture's emphasis on persistence and gradual progress. The symbolic significance of spirit animals extended beyond their practical roles in the story to represent deeper connections between the physical and spiritual worlds. Each nation's original bending teachers embodied the philosophical principles underlying their respective elements, providing living examples of how humans might achieve harmony with natural forces rather than simply exercising power over them. The hybrid creatures that populated the Avatar world served multiple functions beyond simple exotic appeal, creating a consistent ecosystem that felt both familiar and fantastical. The creators ensured that each creature's design reflected the environment and culture where they appeared, while their hybrid nature maintained the magical quality that distinguished the Avatar world from mundane reality. This careful balance between the familiar and the impossible became one of the series' most distinctive and memorable characteristics. The opening sequence of Avatar: The Last Airbender contained layers of meaning that extended far beyond its function as a simple introduction to each episode. Every element within these brief moments was carefully crafted to enhance the viewing experience through subtle details that rewarded careful observation while contributing to the overall atmosphere of the series. The creators understood that these opening moments set the tone for each episode, and they invested considerable effort in ensuring that even the smallest elements carried significance. The melody that plays during the opening shot of each episode represents one of the most sophisticated aspects of Avatar's audio design. Rather than using a single, standardized musical theme for every episode, the composers created unique musical arrangements that connected directly to the content and emotional tone of the specific episode being introduced. This attention to musical detail created an additional layer of storytelling that prepared viewers for the emotional journey they were about to experience. During the Painted Lady episode, careful listeners can identify a portion of the Painted Lady's distinctive theme woven into the opening melody, subtly preparing audiences for the spiritual encounter that would define that particular story. This musical foreshadowing created subliminal connections between the opening sequence and the episode's content, enhancing the overall viewing experience through carefully orchestrated audio cues that operated below the level of conscious awareness. The Firebending Masters episode featured a slower, more contemplative version of the Sun Warrior's ancient chant during its opening sequence, reflecting the episode's focus on rediscovering the true nature of firebending through connection with its original dragon masters. This musical choice reinforced the episode's themes of returning to fundamental truths and abandoning corrupted teachings, preparing viewers for Zuko's spiritual transformation through subtle audio preparation. The first and final episodes of the series received special musical treatment that bookended the entire Avatar saga with variations of the Avatar theme. These musical choices created a sense of completion and cyclical return that enhanced the epic scope of Aang's journey, while providing audio continuity that tied the series together as a complete artistic work. The subtle variations in these theme presentations reflected the character growth and changed circumstances that separated the beginning from the end of the story. The title card backgrounds throughout the series maintained remarkable consistency, with one notable exception that carried deep symbolic meaning. Every episode featured a clean white background behind the title text, creating a neutral canvas that allowed the episode titles to stand out clearly without visual distraction. However, the Southern Air Temple broke this pattern by displaying its title against a sunrise background, symbolically representing Aang's return to his childhood home and the dawn of his understanding about his people's fate. This sunrise background served multiple symbolic functions beyond simple visual variety. The warm colors suggested hope and new beginnings, even as Aang faced the devastating reality of the air nomad's extinction, while the gradual transition from darkness to light mirrored Aang's emotional journey from denial to acceptance. The creators understood that this visual departure from the standard format would be noticed by attentive viewers, adding weight to an already emotionally significant episode. The calligraphy that appeared throughout the series carried authentic meanings that enriched the viewing experience for audiences familiar with Chinese characters while maintaining visual appeal for those who could not read the text. Every piece of writing visible on screen underwent careful translation and verification to ensure accuracy. From grand imperial proclamations to intimate personal correspondence between characters, the map shown during Avatar's intro sequence contains calligraphy at the top and bottom that forms a rhyming couplet in Chinese, demonstrating the creator's commitment to meaningful detail even in brief visual elements. When translated, this text reads, "Powers are divided into 4. The world is guided by 1, providing a succinct summary of the Avatar universe's fundamental organizing principle, while showcasing authentic Chinese poetic structure. The 4 corners of the Avatar world map each contain calligraphy that represents the respective nations through both elemental symbols and philosophical concepts. The left character in each corner's box simply identifies the element associated with that region. But when combined with the character on the right, they create new meanings that reflect each nation's cultural values and philosophical approach to their element. Water becomes virtue in the Water Tribe's corner, reflecting their emphasis on adaptation, community cooperation, and harmony with natural cycles. Earth transforms into strong in the Earth Kingdom's section, emphasizing their cultural values of persistence, stability, and gradual but steady progress toward long-term goals. Fire becomes fierce in the Fire Nation's corner. Though this translation carries both positive and negative connotations that reflect the element's dual nature as both life-giving and destructive force, air becomes peaceful in the Air Nomad's corner, perfectly capturing their philosophical commitment to spiritual detachment, non-violence, and harmony with the natural world. These linguistic transformations demonstrated the creator's sophisticated understanding of how different cultures might approach the same fundamental forces with varying philosophical emphases and practical application. Visual storytelling through background details became one of Avatar's most rewarding aspects for attentive viewers who took time to examine the rich environments created for each scene. The creators filled every frame with meaningful details that supported character development, advanced plot points, or simply enriched the world's authenticity through careful attention to how different cultures might organize their living spaces and public areas. The cabbage merchant's unexpected journey from minor background character to beloved recurring figure demonstrates how organic development could emerge from audience response and creative flexibility. Originally designed as a simple one-time gag to add humor to a marketplace scene, the character's enthusiastic fan reception convinced the writers to bring him back repeatedly, eventually establishing him as a founder of Cabbage Corp in The Legend of Korra. This character's evolution from throwaway joke to significant background figure illustrates the creator's willingness to embrace unexpected elements that emerged during production. The cabbage merchant's recurring appearances created a sense of continuity and lived-in authenticity that made the Avatar world feel like a real place, where the same people might be encountered multiple times during extensive travels. The Foaming Mouth Guy's creation story reveals how collaborative creativity could transform simple scenes into memorable moments that enhanced the overall viewing experience. The character was originally scripted to simply faint upon seeing the Avatar, but animator Ki Young Park's creative contribution added the distinctive foam that made the moment both more memorable and more humorous, while maintaining the scene's basic function within the larger narrative. This collaborative approach to character creation extended throughout the production process, with animators, voice actors, and other creative professionals contributing ideas that enriched the final product beyond what any single creator could have achieved alone. The willingness to incorporate these unexpected contributions created a sense of organic development that made Avatar feel like a living world rather than a rigidly predetermined story. Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino's playful suggestion that Suki had once dated the Foaming Mouth Guy, though never confirmed within the series itself, demonstrates the creator's ongoing engagement with their fictional world beyond the bounds of the actual episodes. These behind-the-scenes creative exercises helped maintain consistency and depth in the Avatar universe, while providing entertainment for fans interested in exploring every aspect of their favorite characters' lives. Symbolic use of colors throughout the series reinforced character development and thematic elements through carefully chosen palettes that operated below the level of conscious awareness for most viewers. Each nation's distinctive color schemes reflected their cultural values and elemental associations, while also serving practical animation needs for maintaining visual clarity during complex action sequences. The evolution of character color palettes throughout the series reflected their personal growth and changing allegiances in subtle ways that rewarded careful observation. Zuko's gradual transition from primarily red and black clothing to earth tones and eventually to combinations that incorporated all four elemental colors visualized his journey from rigid Fire Nation loyalty to a more balanced understanding of the world's complexity. Hidden connections between episodes and characters created additional layers of meaning for viewers who paid attention to recurring visual motifs, character appearances, and subtle references that linked seemingly unrelated storylines. The man cooking by a fire, whom Zuko encounters in Zuko Alone, reappears with his pregnant wife during the Serpent's Pass, creating continuity that made the Avatar world feel like a coherent place where actions had consequences and people continued living their lives between major plot events. These recurring character appearances served multiple functions beyond simple Easter eggs for attentive fans. They demonstrated that the Avatar world contained real people with ongoing lives, rather than simply populating scenes with anonymous background figures who existed only to fill space. This attention to character continuity created investment in the world itself rather than just the main characters, making every location feel authentic and inhabited. The deeper meaning behind visual metaphors extended throughout the series, with symbolic imagery reinforcing thematic elements through carefully chosen visual language that enhanced emotional impact without relying solely on dialogue or explicit exposition. The creators understood that visual storytelling could convey complex ideas and emotions more effectively than words alone, leading them to invest considerable effort in ensuring that every visual element supported the larger narrative goals. The animation process that brought Avatar: The Last Airbender to life represented a remarkable collaboration between American creativity and Korean craftsmanship that pushed the boundaries of what television animation could achieve. The journey from initial concept sketches to finished episodes required coordination across multiple studios, countries, and creative disciplines, with each stage of production demanding meticulous attention to detail and unwavering commitment to the creator's vision. The foundation of Avatar's distinctive visual style began with hand-drawn concept art created by Brian Konietzko and other artists working at Nickelodeon Animation Studio in Burbank, California. These initial sketches established the character designs, environmental concepts, and overall aesthetic direction that would guide every subsequent stage of production. The creators understood that their ambitious storytelling goals required equally ambitious visual execution, leading them to develop techniques that would elevate Avatar above typical television animation standards. The international collaboration that defined Avatar's production process involved shipping concept art, storyboards, and detailed animation notes to JM Animation in South Korea, where skilled animators would transform static drawings into fluid movement. This partnership required extraordinary coordination and communication, as the American creative team needed to convey not only the technical requirements for each scene, but also the emotional subtleties that would bring characters to life through movement and expression. Director Giancarlo Volpe's creative vision proved instrumental in establishing the cinematic quality that distinguished Avatar from other animated television series. Volpe brought film sensibilities to television animation, incorporating camera movements, lighting techniques, and compositional strategies typically reserved for feature films. His background in both animation and live-action filmmaking allowed him to translate complex storytelling concepts into visual language that enhanced narrative impact without overwhelming the audience. The influence of FLCL on Avatar's production team extended far beyond simple artistic inspiration to encompass fundamental approaches to visual storytelling and emotional expression through animation. The creators required their entire staff to study this groundbreaking anime series, analyzing how unconventional animation techniques could convey internal character states and abstract concepts that traditional animation might struggle to represent effectively. This mandatory viewing session introduced the Avatar team to animation techniques that prioritized emotional authenticity over realistic movement, encouraging them to experiment with stylistic choices that would serve their story's emotional needs rather than adhering to conventional animation standards. The willingness to embrace experimental techniques became one of Avatar's defining characteristics, allowing the series to achieve moments of visual poetry that elevated the viewing experience beyond simple entertainment. The challenge of animating complex bending sequences required innovative approaches to depicting supernatural abilities through recognizable physical movement. The animation team needed to create visual effects that felt both magical and grounded in the martial arts foundations underlying each bending discipline. This balance between the fantastical and the authentic demanded extensive collaboration between the American creative team and their Korean animation partners. Fight choreography translation from live action to animation involved multiple stages of development, beginning with the creator's research into authentic martial arts movements and progressing through storyboard development to final animation. The process required understanding not only how real martial artists moved their bodies, but also how those movements could be enhanced and stylized to convey the supernatural power of bending while maintaining visual clarity during fast-paced action sequences. The creation of Avatar's unique visual language extended beyond individual character animation to encompass environmental design, color theory, and symbolic imagery that reinforced thematic elements throughout each episode. Every visual choice underwent careful consideration to ensure that it supported the larger narrative goals while maintaining consistency with the established aesthetic principles that defined the Avatar world's distinctive appearance. Color palettes played crucial roles in conveying emotional information and cultural identity throughout the series, with each nation's distinctive color schemes serving both aesthetic and narrative functions. The animation team developed sophisticated approaches to color that went beyond simple decoration to create psychological associations that enhanced character development and plot progression through purely visual means. The Fire Nation's predominantly red and black color scheme conveyed both the warmth and danger associated with fire, while also reflecting the authoritarian nature of their political system and the corruption that had infected their original spiritual traditions. The gradual introduction of gold and orange tones during moments of redemption and spiritual awakening demonstrated how color choices could track character development without requiring explicit dialogue or exposition. The evolution of animation quality throughout the series reflected both growing budget allocations and the creative team's increasing confidence in their ability to execute ambitious visual sequences. Early episodes, while impressive for television animation, showed certain limitations in terms of character movement and background detail that were gradually overcome as the production team refined their techniques and expanded their capabilities. Technical innovations that enhanced storytelling included the development of new approaches to depicting elemental effects, particularly the fluid animation of water and the weighty movement of earth during bending sequences. The animation team created techniques for showing the interaction between different elements that maintained visual consistency while allowing for spectacular displays of supernatural power during climactic battle scenes. The seamless integration of 2D character animation with computer-generated effects represented one of Avatar's most significant technical achievements. The production team developed methods for combining traditional hand-drawn animation with digital effects that enhanced rather than replaced the organic quality of character movement. This hybrid approach allowed for visual spectacle that supported rather than overshadowed the human elements that remained central to Avatar's appeal. The collaborative relationship between directors, storyboard artists, and animators created an environment where creative solutions could emerge organically from the production process itself, rather than rigidly adhering to predetermined visual plans. The team remained open to improvements and innovations that arose during animation, leading to sequences that exceeded the original creative vision through collaborative enhancement. The attention to detail in background animation created richly textured environments that enhanced the believability of the Avatar world without drawing attention away from character-focused storytelling. The animation team populated every scene with subtle movement and atmospheric details that made locations feel alive and inhabited, contributing to the series' reputation for creating a fictional world that felt authentic and lived in. The development of Avatar's distinctive cinematography involved borrowing techniques from live-action filmmaking and adapting them for animation, creating visual approaches that enhanced dramatic impact. Through strategic use of camera angles, lighting, and composition, the willingness to experiment with cinematic techniques typically reserved for feature films elevated Avatar's visual storytelling beyond the limitations often associated with television animation. Sound design integration with visual animation required careful coordination to ensure that audio and visual elements reinforced each other rather than competing for audience attention. The production team developed sophisticated approaches to timing that allowed music, sound effects, and dialogue to enhance the emotional impact of animated sequences while maintaining clarity and dramatic focus. The legacy of Avatar's production innovations continues to influence animated television series, demonstrating that ambitious creative goals and technical excellence could coexist within the constraints of television budgets and schedules. The techniques developed during Avatar's production proved that animated series could achieve cinematic quality without sacrificing the character development and narrative complexity that made television storytelling uniquely powerful. The international collaboration that brought Avatar to life established new standards for cross-cultural creative partnerships in animation, proving that meaningful artistic exchange could occur when creative teams approached cultural differences with respect and genuine interest in learning from each other. This collaborative spirit became an integral part of Avatar's identity, reflecting the series' thematic emphasis on understanding and cooperation between different cultures and perspectives. Chapter 8: Character Development and Relationships. The construction of Zuko's redemption arc across 3 seasons represents one of the most carefully orchestrated character transformations in television history. The creators understood that authentic redemption could not be achieved through simple plot convenience or sudden personality changes, requiring instead a gradual progression that honored both the character's past actions and his potential for growth. This meticulous approach to character development established new standards for how animated series could tackle complex moral themes while maintaining accessibility for younger audiences. Zuko's journey began with his introduction as a seemingly straightforward antagonist whose single-minded pursuit of the Avatar appeared to stem from simple loyalty to the Fire Nation. However, the creators embedded subtle hints of internal conflict from his earliest appearances, suggesting depths that would be gradually revealed through careful storytelling choices that respected both the character's complexity and the audience's intelligence. The Scarred Prince's relationship with his uncle Iroh provided the emotional foundation for his eventual transformation, though this relationship required careful development to avoid undermining Zuko's agency in choosing his own path. Iroh's patient guidance and unconditional love created a consistent alternative to the toxic influence of Zuko's father, though the creators ensured that Zuko's redemption emerged from his own choices rather than simply following his uncle's wisdom. The complexity of Azula's character development revealed the creators' sophisticated understanding of how trauma and expectations could warp even the most gifted individuals. Rather than presenting her as a simple villain, the series gradually revealed the psychological damage underlying her apparent perfection, demonstrating how the Fire Nation's corrupt values had created a prodigy who excelled at everything except genuine human connection. Azula's tragic elements emerged through subtle details that accumulated throughout the series, from her inability to understand why her mother might have loved Zuko despite his imperfections, to her increasing isolation as her psychological instability became apparent to those around her. The creators understood that true tragedy required audiences to recognize the humanity within even the most antagonistic characters, creating empathy without excusing harmful actions. The gradual revelation of Azula's mental deterioration during the final season demonstrated the creators' willingness to tackle serious psychological themes through animated storytelling. Her breakdown felt authentic rather than convenient, emerging naturally from the pressures and contradictions that had shaped her entire life while serving the larger narrative needs of the series' conclusion. Katara's role as deuteragonist required balancing her function as the emotional center of Team Avatar with her individual character arc as a young woman discovering her own power and identity. The creators acknowledged that Katara served as the heart of the group while ensuring that she maintained her own goals, conflicts, and growth opportunities throughout the series. Her evolution from an untrained waterbender, desperate to help her people, into a master capable of challenging the greatest warriors of her generation, reflected both her natural abilities and her determination to protect those she loved. The creators ensured that Katara's power growth felt earned rather than arbitrary, with each new ability emerging from emotional and spiritual development rather than simple plot convenience. Katara's maternal instincts toward her companions created both strength and vulnerability. as her desire to care for others sometimes conflicted with her own needs and ambitions. The creators explored how responsibility for others could both empower and burden young people, particularly those who had experienced loss and trauma at early ages. Sokka's intelligence, hidden beneath comic relief, represented one of the series' most successful examples of subverting audience expectations through gradual character revelation. The creators established Sokka as the group's comic relief, while simultaneously demonstrating his strategic thinking, creativity, and emotional intelligence through actions that revealed depths not immediately apparent through his humorous dialogue. The Swordmaster episode provided crucial development for Sokka's character by allowing him to pursue excellence in an area where his lack of bending abilities would not disadvantage him. This storyline demonstrated the creator's commitment to giving every character opportunities for growth and achievement that honored their individual strengths rather than simply highlighting their limitations. Sokka's relationships with multiple romantic interests throughout the series allowed the creators to explore different aspects of young love while developing his character through his interactions with others. Each relationship revealed different facets of his personality while contributing to his overall growth as both a warrior and a young man discovering his place in the world. Toph's introduction in the second season fundamentally altered the group dynamic by adding a character whose directness and independence challenged the established relationships between other team members. The creators used her blindness not as a limitation, but as a source of unique abilities and perspectives that enriched the group's problem-solving capabilities, while forcing other characters to reconsider their assumptions about strength and weakness. Her earthbending mastery, achieved through connection with badger moles rather than human teachers, provided an alternative model for learning that emphasized intuition and natural ability over formal instruction. This approach to education reflected Toph's rejection of traditional expectations while demonstrating that excellence could emerge from unconventional paths. Toph's wealthy background and family conflicts added layers of complexity to her character that extended beyond her role as the earthbending teacher. The creators explored how family expectations and social privilege could become prisons for young people whose abilities and personalities exceeded conventional boundaries, creating sympathy for her rebellion, while acknowledging the pain her choices caused her parents. The subtle development of romantic relationships throughout the series required balancing the emotional needs of the characters with the overall narrative structure and the expectations of a diverse audience. The creators approached romance as one element of character development rather than the primary focus, ensuring that romantic subplots enhanced rather than dominated the larger story. Aang's feelings for Katara developed gradually throughout the series, with the creators showing how his initial attraction evolved into deeper understanding and genuine love. The relationship's progression felt natural rather than forced, emerging from shared experiences and mutual respect rather than simple physical attraction or plot convenience. The complexity of romantic feelings during wartime added additional layers to these relationships, as characters faced the possibility of losing each other in battle while trying to maintain hope for the future. The creators understood that young love during crisis carried both intensity and fragility that required careful handling to feel authentic. Uncle Iroh's wisdom and his journey through grief provided some of the series' most emotionally resonant moments, while demonstrating how loss could lead to greater compassion rather than bitterness. His transformation from successful Fire Nation general to wise mentor reflected the creator's understanding that true wisdom often emerged from experiencing profound loss and choosing growth over revenge. Iroh's relationship with Zuko demonstrated how love could persist despite disappointment and betrayal, with the old general maintaining faith in his nephew's potential for goodness even when Zuko himself had lost sight of that possibility. This unconditional love provided the foundation for Zuko's eventual redemption, while never excusing his harmful choices. The secondary characters who enriched the main narrative received careful development that made them feel like real people rather than simple plot devices. Characters like Thank You Lee and Mai possessed their own motivations, conflicts, and growth arcs that intersected with, but remained independent from the main characters' journeys. How secondary characters demonstrated different aspects of love and friendship expanded the series' exploration of human relationships. Beyond the core group dynamics, the creators used these characters to show how the same circumstances could produce different responses, illustrating the complexity of human nature while enriching the overall narrative texture. The balance between character growth and plot progression required constant attention to ensure that neither element overwhelmed the other. The creators understood that plot events only mattered if they affected characters in meaningful ways, while character development needed to serve the larger story rather than existing for its own sake. Relationships that demonstrated various forms of love throughout the series included not only romantic connections, but also familial bonds, friendships, mentorship, and the complex dynamics between former enemies who discovered common ground. This comprehensive exploration of human connection elevated Avatar beyond simple adventure storytelling to examine the fundamental forces that bind people together across cultural and ideological differences. The exploration of balance as Avatar: The Last Airbender's central theme required the creators to weave this concept through every level of storytelling, from individual character arcs to the cosmic struggle between spiritual forces that shaped their fictional world. Balance emerged not as a simple concept of moderation, but as a dynamic equilibrium that required constant attention, adjustment, and the wisdom to understand when action or restraint served the greater good. The Avatar's role as a bridge between the spirit world and physical realm embodied this theme of balance in its most literal form, though the creators ensured that this responsibility carried personal costs that made the concept tangible rather than abstract. Aang's struggle to maintain his peaceful nature while fulfilling his duty to stop the Fire Nation demonstrated how balance required not compromise, but integration of seemingly opposing forces. The four elements themselves represented different approaches to achieving balance, with each nation's philosophy offering partial wisdom that became dangerous when taken to extremes. The air nomads' detachment could become avoidance of responsibility. The water tribe's adaptability could become lack of conviction, the Earth Kingdom's stability could become stubborn resistance to necessary change, and the Fire Nation's passion could become destructive ambition. War's impact on individuals and societies permeated every aspect of the series, demonstrating how prolonged conflict corrupted institutions, relationships, and personal values in ways that extended far beyond immediate physical destruction. The creators examined how war affected different characters based on their roles, from soldiers who had lost their humanity to civilians who had known nothing but conflict throughout their entire lives. The Fire Nation's transformation from a culture that honored dragons and understood fire's life-giving properties into an aggressive imperial power illustrated how war could corrupt an entire civilization's fundamental values. The creators showed this transformation through architectural details, cultural practices, and the gradually revealed history of how the Fire Nation had abandoned their spiritual foundations in pursuit of technological and military superiority. The psychological toll of war on individuals received careful attention throughout the series, particularly through characters like Jet, whose trauma had transformed him from a victim into someone willing to harm innocents in pursuit of revenge. The creators understood that war's true tragedy lay not only in immediate casualties, but in how conflict perpetuated itself through the wounded who carried their pain forward into future generations. The cycle of violence and how it could be broken became one of Avatar's most sophisticated thematic explorations, acknowledging both the natural human desire for revenge and the wisdom required to choose a different path. The series demonstrated how violence created more violence through a self-perpetuating cycle that could only be interrupted by individuals willing to absorb harm rather than pass it forward. Aang's ultimate refusal to kill Fire Lord Ozai represented the series' most direct statement about breaking cycles of violence, though the creators ensured that this choice felt earned rather than naive. The discovery of energy bending provided a solution that honored both Aang's principles and the practical need to stop Ozai's destructive ambitions, demonstrating that creative alternatives could emerge when individuals remained committed to their deepest values. The generational nature of violence appeared throughout the series in relationships between parents and children, particularly in how Ozai's abuse of Zuko and Azula had perpetuated the dysfunction that originated with his own father, Azulon. The creators used family dynamics to explore how trauma and unhealthy patterns could pass from one generation to the next, unless consciously interrupted by individuals willing to make different choices. Redemption and the possibility of change formed another central theme that required balancing hope with realism about the difficulty of genuine transformation. The creators demonstrated that redemption required not only recognition of past mistakes, but active work to repair damage and develop new patterns of behavior that honored the lessons learned through suffering. Zuko's redemption arc served as the series' primary exploration of this theme, showing how change required time, setbacks, and the support of others who believed in the possibility of growth. The creators ensured that Zuko's transformation felt authentic by showing him struggling with old patterns, making mistakes, and gradually developing the strength to choose differently when faced with familiar temptation. The complexity of redemption extended beyond individual characters to encompass entire nations and cultures that needed to confront their participation in harmful systems. The Fire Nation's eventual recognition of their war crimes and commitment to repairing the damage they had caused demonstrated how redemption could operate on societal levels, while acknowledging that such transformation required generations of sustained effort. The responsibility that comes with power received extensive exploration through multiple characters who wielded different forms of influence and authority. The creators understood that power itself was neither good nor evil, but that the choices made by those who possessed it determined whether it served constructive or destructive purposes. Aang's struggle with the Avatar state illustrated how even beneficial power could become dangerous when used without wisdom or proper control. The creators showed how the Avatar state's immense destructive potential required not only technical mastery, but emotional maturity and spiritual understanding that could only develop through experience and reflection. The Fire Nation's technological superiority provided another lens for examining how power could corrupt those who possessed it, particularly when that power seemed to provide easy solutions to complex problems. The creators demonstrated how reliance on force and technology had led the Fire Nation to neglect the diplomatic skills and spiritual wisdom that might have allowed them to contribute positively to the world. Cultural preservation versus progress emerged as a recurring tension throughout the series, particularly in how different characters responded to the changes forced upon their societies by war and technological advancement. The creators avoided simple answers about whether tradition or innovation served society better, instead exploring how communities could honor their heritage while adapting to new circumstances. The Air Nomads' genocide represented the ultimate consequence of failing to balance preservation with adaptation, as their commitment to pacifism had left them vulnerable to aggression they could not counter through traditional means. However, the creators also showed how Aang's survival allowed air nomad wisdom to influence the post-war world in ways that pure military resistance might not have achieved. The Earth Kingdom's rigid adherence to tradition created both stability and stagnation, with Ba Sing Se's elaborate bureaucracy protecting citizens from immediate harm while preventing the flexibility needed to address changing threats. The creators used these examples to explore how cultural values could become both strengths and weaknesses depending on the circumstances they faced. The importance of understanding different perspectives received constant reinforcement throughout the series, with characters regularly discovering that their enemies possessed valid concerns and legitimate grievances that had been distorted by conflict and misunderstanding. The creators demonstrated how conflict often emerged from partial truths rather than fundamental incompatibility between different groups. Iroh's journey from Fire Nation general to wise mentor illustrated how exposure to different cultures and philosophies could expand understanding and reduce the prejudices that fueled conflict. His appreciation for tea ceremony, music, and other cultural practices from different nations demonstrated how individuals could maintain their identity while embracing wisdom from diverse sources. How children's animation tackled mature themes without losing accessibility for younger viewers, required sophisticated approaches to storytelling that honored both the intelligence of young audiences and their emotional needs. The creators understood that children could handle complex moral questions when presented with appropriate context and support for processing difficult concepts. The role of spirituality in finding inner peace extended beyond specific religious traditions to encompass universal human needs for meaning, connection, and transcendence that could be found through various practices and philosophies. The creators drew from multiple spiritual traditions while creating something new that served their stories' specific requirements. Lessons about forgiveness and moving forward from trauma appeared throughout the series in various forms, from personal relationships to international conflicts that required former enemies to find ways of coexisting peacefully. The creators demonstrated that forgiveness did not require forgetting or excusing harmful behavior, but rather choosing to prioritize healing and growth over perpetual resentment. The series' philosophical sophistication emerged from the creators' willingness to embrace complexity rather than offering simple answers to difficult questions, trusting audiences to engage thoughtfully with moral ambiguity and challenging concepts. This approach elevated Avatar beyond typical children's entertainment to create a work that remained relevant and meaningful for viewers of all ages, who continued discovering new layers of meaning through repeated viewing. Avatar: The Last Airbender's impact on animation and children's television extended far beyond its original 3-season run, fundamentally altering industry expectations about what animated series could achieve in terms of narrative complexity, cultural authenticity, and thematic sophistication. The series demonstrated that young audiences possessed the intelligence and emotional maturity to engage with challenging concepts when presented through skilled storytelling that respected their capacity for understanding nuanced moral questions. The elevation of animation as a legitimate artistic medium received significant advancement through Avatar's critical acclaim and widespread cultural recognition. Prior to its release, animated television series targeting younger audiences rarely achieved the level of respect accorded to live-action productions, with animation often dismissed as inherently less sophisticated or meaningful than other forms of storytelling. Avatar's success challenged these preconceptions by demonstrating that animation could serve as an ideal vehicle for exploring complex themes that might prove difficult to address through other mediums. The series' influence on subsequent animated productions became evident in the increased willingness of creators and networks to invest in serialized storytelling, character development, and sophisticated world building for animated television. Shows like Steven Universe, The Legend of Korra, and various other series drew inspiration from Avatar's approach to balancing episodic entertainment with overarching narrative arcs that rewarded long-term viewer investment. The integration of authentic cultural research into fictional world building established new standards for how creators could draw inspiration from real-world traditions without falling into appropriation or stereotypical representation. Avatar's careful balance between honoring its cultural sources and creating something original provided a template for respectful cultural fusion that influenced numerous subsequent productions across various media. The approach to depicting martial arts in animation received particular advancement through Avatar's collaboration with authentic practitioners and its commitment to translating real fighting techniques into fantastical but grounded supernatural abilities. This attention to authenticity influenced how action sequences were conceptualized and animated in later productions, with many creators recognizing that audiences appreciated the additional layer of realism that came from grounding fictional abilities in recognizable physical practices. The show's influence on voice acting standards became apparent through the industry's increased recognition that animated performances required the same level of skill and emotional depth as live-action work. Avatar's casting choices demonstrated that matching voice actors to characters required more than simply finding appropriate vocal qualities, with the best performances emerging from actors who understood their characters' psychological complexity and emotional journeys. Cultural appreciation versus appropriation discussions gained new dimensions through Avatar's example of how fictional works could honor their inspirations while creating something distinctly new. The series sparked important conversations about the difference between respectful cultural fusion and superficial borrowing, with many scholars and critics examining how Avatar's creators had navigated these complex issues through extensive research and thoughtful adaptation. The academic analysis and scholarly recognition that Avatar received distinguished it from most children's television programming, with universities incorporating the series into courses examining animation, cultural studies, philosophy, and media literacy. This scholarly attention validated the series' sophisticated approach to storytelling while introducing new generations of students to animation's potential as a serious artistic medium. The examination of Avatar's themes in academic contexts revealed layers of meaning that enriched appreciation for the creator's achievements, while demonstrating how popular entertainment could serve educational purposes without sacrificing its entertainment value. Studies of the series' approach to war, redemption, cultural identity, and spiritual growth provided frameworks for understanding how fictional narratives could explore real-world issues through metaphorical and allegorical storytelling. The devoted fan base that emerged around Avatar created new models for audience engagement that extended far beyond passive consumption to include creative participation, critical analysis, and community building around shared appreciation for sophisticated storytelling. This fan engagement demonstrated how quality content could inspire audiences to become active participants in expanding and exploring fictional worlds rather than simply receiving entertainment. Community creation around Avatar included fan art, fiction, analysis, and discussion that often matched or exceeded the sophistication of professional criticism and commentary. This phenomenon illustrated how meaningful content could inspire creativity in its audience, while fostering communities united by shared values and appreciation for thoughtful storytelling rather than simple consumption of commercial products. The merchandise and expanded universe development that followed Avatar's success reflected the challenge of maintaining quality and authenticity when extending beloved properties beyond their original medium. The creator's involvement in overseeing various extensions of the Avatar universe demonstrated their commitment to preserving the values and standards that had made the original series successful. The transition to The Legend of Korra provided a unique opportunity to examine how successful properties could evolve and expand while maintaining connection to their origins. This sequel series faced the challenge of honoring Avatar's legacy while telling new stories that justified their existence rather than simply capitalizing on established popularity. The different reception and artistic choices in The Legend of Korra illustrated both the opportunities and challenges inherent in continuing successful franchises, with some elements building successfully on Avatar's foundation, while others struggled to achieve the same level of cultural impact and critical acclaim. These variations demonstrated the difficulty of recapturing lightning in a bottle while providing valuable lessons about what elements were essential to Avatar's original success. International reception and global appeal revealed Avatar's success in creating content that transcended cultural boundaries while remaining grounded in specific cultural traditions. The series' ability to resonate with audiences from diverse backgrounds demonstrated how authentic cultural specificity could enhance rather than limit universal appeal when handled with skill and respect. The translation and adaptation challenges faced when bringing Avatar to international markets highlighted both the series' cultural sophistication and the complexity of cross-cultural communication in entertainment media. The success of these international versions provided evidence that quality storytelling could overcome language barriers when supported by universal themes and authentic emotional content. How Avatar changed expectations for children's programming became evident in the increased willingness of networks and creators to invest in complex, serialized storytelling for younger audiences. The series proved that children could appreciate sophisticated narrative techniques, character development, and thematic exploration when presented through engaging and accessible storytelling. The elevation of animation's status as a storytelling medium received significant advancement through Avatar's critical recognition and cultural impact. The series demonstrated that animated content could achieve the same level of artistic recognition and cultural significance as live-action productions when creators approached their work with appropriate ambition and skill. The influence on creator-driven content became apparent in the increased industry recognition that successful animated series emerged from clear creative vision rather than committee decisions or market research. Avatar's success validated the importance of allowing creators to pursue their artistic goals while providing appropriate support and resources for achieving ambitious storytelling objectives. The enduring relevance of Avatar's messages in modern times continues to provide frameworks for understanding contemporary issues related to cultural conflict, environmental responsibility, political power, and personal growth. The series' themes remain applicable to current events and social challenges, demonstrating how well-crafted fiction could offer insights that transcended its original historical context. The continued discovery of new meanings and applications for Avatar's lessons by viewers at different life stages illustrated how sophisticated content could grow with its audience rather than becoming obsolete as viewers matured. This longevity provided evidence that investment in quality storytelling created lasting value that justified the additional effort and resources required for authentic artistic achievement. The lasting impact of Avatar's approach to animation, storytelling, and cultural representation continues to influence how creators and audiences understand the potential of animated television as a medium for meaningful artistic expression and cultural communication. The series established precedents and expectations that continue to shape industry practices and audience expectations more than a decade after its original conclusion. As our journey through the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender draws to a close, we find ourselves enriched by the countless details that brought this masterpiece to life. From the careful research into ancient martial arts to the thoughtful representation of diverse cultures, every element was crafted with intention and respect. The creators' dedication to authenticity, combined with their innovative storytelling, created something truly extraordinary that transcended the boundaries of children's entertainment. These hidden truths and behind-the-scenes revelations remind us that great art emerges from passion, collaboration, and unwavering commitment to excellence. The legacy of Avatar continues to inspire new generations of storytellers and dreamers, proving that animated tales can carry profound wisdom and universal truths when approached with genuine care and artistic integrity. As you drift into peaceful sleep, may the balance and harmony of the four nations guide your dreams, and may the spirit of adventure that Aang embodied kindle hope for tomorrow's possibilities. In this world of endless imagination, even the smallest details contribute to something magnificent and enduring. The whispered secrets we have shared tonight stand as testament to the transformative power of storytelling, reminding us that when creators honor their craft with dedication and respect, they create works that continue touching hearts and minds across generations, cultures, and time itself.